Hey, so welcome to the third video in the elbow striking series of the Flow Training Program. So to quickly recap, in video 1, we talked about the basic technique of elbows. In video 2, we talked about the different angles that we can use with elbows, as well as how to use our feet in order to step forward when striking. In this video, we're going to talk about the actual applications of elbows. So it's one thing to know technique, it's another to know how to use them, when to use them, and what the best applications are. Now, before you dive into this video, I want to make sure that you've practiced, right? If you haven't even watched videos 1 and 2, do not fast forward to this one yet. It's really important that you come into this particular video with at least an understanding of the technique and that you do have a little bit of a comfort level as far as using this technique. So in order to demonstrate the different applications, I have my friend here. Now, obviously, you may not have access to something like this, but if you do have a punching bag, or even, if you have a beam in your house that you can wrap a pillow around, or even just something that you can hit very, very lightly, it just kind of helps for you to understand how this technique is used. Also, if you have a partner, obviously, I don't want you hitting your friends very hard, but you can use a partner just to understand what your targets are. Because that's the main thing with elbows, is understanding what are my targets. So if we look over here on, this guy's name is Bob. So if we look at Bob, we're going to look at the different targets we're aiming for. Now with the straight elbow, the first one that I taught you, which comes straight across, what we're basically targeting is the entire side of the head. The reason for that is I don't want to get too specific. If your target is too specific, it'll make you more nervous as far as using these techniques. The goal is the bigger the target, the less nervous you are, the greater chance of success. Now remember, with any type of self-defense technique, the goal here is I'm not trying to beat someone up. I'm not trying to prove myself in any way. What I'm trying to do is give myself a chance to get away from a bad situation. And the great thing about elbows, and especially if you're striking this side of the head, the side of the head, is that you're going to create, there's an opportunity to get that person off balance. Right? So what are the targets? The targets we're looking at are the ear, we're looking at the jaw, we're looking at the temple, and we're looking at the side of the neck. All of those, if struck with enough force, can cause the person to become off balance and to give yourself a great chance at getting away. All right? So if we apply the technique itself, I'm going to use my left since this is the size that you can see properly. So remember, your hands are up, and make sure that your feet, how your feet are placed is really important. We talked about this in the very first video where we covered movement, but in this video also I want to reinforce the importance of your foot position, the position of your feet. So you want to have your feet shoulder width. And when I'm very close to my opponent, what I like to do is even open up my feet a little bit, like a bit of a duck stance. Why? Because that just gives me more balance. Remember, there's going to be some pushing, there might be some shoving. I want to make sure that I'm as balanced as possible, that I'm as stable as possible. Also, I'm going to bend my knees a little bit. Right? Just so that I have that extra strength coming from my legs. Now, once I'm in position, my hands are up. Now, hands up obviously is to protect myself. But from this position here, in order to strike with the elbow, it's basically two basic movements, right? Movement 1 is I lift the elbow up. Movement 2, I bring it across using my shoulder joint. So again, it's 1 lift, 2 comes across, and let's be careful about this hand, making sure that it stays up so that I'm protected. Right? So if I'm hitting with my left, I keep my right hand up. If I'm hitting with my right, I keep my left hand up. So when I'm hitting my target, what I personally prefer is I prefer to aim for the neck and jaw area, right? Because I feel like it's just an easier target for me to hit. But also, again, I can go for the ear, I can go for the temple. All of those, it's a nice big target. That's what you're going for, okay? Now, the other type of elbow that we looked at were angles, right? So there were different angles that we talked about. One of those angles is coming from the top and then bringing it down. So it would look like this, is I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to bring it down. Why would I use that? Let's say, in this situation, let's say this person's actually holding me, right? So I have a jacket on, for example, and they're grabbing my jacket, which makes it very difficult for me to move. But as long as I can get an arm free, I can bring it up over their arms, over their hands, and come down with a decent amount of power, okay? Another way I can use angles here is the up elbow, right? We talked about that uppercut elbow. In this situation, I'm actually going right under the chin. In this situation here, I have my hands up, I'm coming up. Remember, I'm bringing my hand back and the elbow goes straight up and I'm hitting under the chin. If I miss the chin, I might hit the nose. Also a good target to go for. right? So chin, nose, anything in this line right here is what I'm going to be aiming for with the uppercut elbow. Another great exercise you can try as far as applying these elbows is what if I'm holding this person, right? What if we're grabbing each other, for example? From this position here, I can still strike. All I have to do is bring my hand back towards me and make sure that elbow comes out at the same time. So I bring the hand back and I strike with the elbow. And I like to keep my other hand on the target, right? So my hands are here. Let's say I'm grabbing this person. Boom. And it's a great way also to make sure that you're emphasizing the movement of the shoulder joint and that you're not just trying to turn your entire body, which, as we explained, kind of takes away from the beauty of the elbow technique, which is it can be done in a very close range. Another thing you can work on when using a target and your application work is that step that we talked about in the first video or the second. I honestly don't remember. But you can use that step where now I'm further away. So I want to step towards my target and then strike. Step and then strike. Okay, so those are the applications of the elbow technique. Remember, the elbow is a very close range technique, which means that if I'm further away from my target, the elbow probably isn't the first thing I'm going to work with. The elbow strike is an amazing technique when I'm very close range, when the person is grabbing me, and when there isn't much space for me to create anything else. So one more thing I want to cover before we go is, what if my opponent is taller than me, right? So obviously this person is much taller than me all of a sudden. This might happen in a self-defense situation. Obviously people are all different sizes, but especially let's say you're a woman and you're dealing with a man who's taller than you, this is going to be something that you might run into. So now obviously if this person is much taller than me, the idea of reaching all the way up and trying to hit his head is not very realistic. Probably not a very good idea, especially if I'm getting all the way up here, then it's going to be much harder for me to balance. So here what I'm looking at actually is the neck, right? So in this situation, this is where that up angle elbow comes in very handy. And now I'm lifting up the elbow and I'm actually trying to hit the neck. Okay, I'm forgetting completely about the head and I'm really focusing on the neck. Another thing that sometimes people don't realize is if that person's much taller, I can drop down low and use these elbows to the body, right? For example, right here is the liver. So if I'm able to hit a good strong strike with my left elbow to that liver, I can do some real damage there and I can knock that person down with a really good liver strike. There's also the solar plexus right here, and I can dig elbows into that as well. Now, obviously, this is harder if the person's the same height as me, but if they have a height advantage, I might as well use that to my advantage, drop down nice and low, and now I can work the body with those elbows. Okay, now again, all of this takes practice, all of this takes confidence, but I wanted to make sure that you understood what the applications are for this technique as you perfect it, as you put in the hours and the repetitions that will help you get better at using these techniques with more confidence. Okay, so those are the applications for the elbow strikes. Remember, if you haven't reviewed videos 1 and 2, please do so you have a better understanding of the technique, and then you can work on your applications. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please message me, and I look forward to the next video. Peace.